Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. PhotoWorks is so proud to present Learning to See Beyond the Surface, the work of photographer Carolina Zumarán-Jones. Carolina is an avid photographer and a longtime friend of PhotoWorks. She's a Maryland-based photographer originally from Argentina who spent her childhood in Venezuela, Bolivia, and the United States. In 2016, she retired after a 45-year career designing and managing programs in international education, cultural exchange, and corporate fundraising. Her roles included management positions with organizations such as USAID, USIS, and the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, as well as with Washington, D.C. based nonprofits focused on global outreach initiatives funded by the U.S. foundations dedicated to promoting cross-cultural understanding. She holds a degree in French literature from Georgetown University. Carolina began her photography career here at PhotoWorks in 2017. And in addition, she's currently serving as a very valuable member of our executive board. She'll elaborate more about her evolution as a photographer, her life as a learner. For this exhibit, Karen Keating, our executive director, and I reviewed two of Carolina's portfolios, and we decided to include both because it best described her work and her way of thinking. Um, Karen will talk a little bit about our selection process, and then Carolina will tell us about herself and her work, and then we'll look at her work, and you can ask questions as we go along, or you could wait till the end, however you want. If you've got something to say, just say it. So, Karen, you want to just talk a little bit about our selection process?
Yes, excuse me, I really do. I've got kind of a horsey voice tonight. Sorry about that. Um, the, the for me, this was really a joy to do. Um,
How do you see, to be an artist?
I'm sorry. Okay. As some of you probably know, I herd together photographers about once a month at PhotoWorks on a Sunday, and we are always having images, nothing digital, but all photo prints, and have a critique. That is something I really enjoy doing. Doing Carolina's was just really, really terrific because of the level of attention and work that she's done on making them really a set of images, not just, something that we sometimes start. So I rethought how we did this process, and I think I have the highlights of it, and I would like to speak to it now. We scrolled through her images, especially what I call the first set that we saw that was completed. I believe she would say that. And just kept kind of taking them out and putting them next to another image and then another. And we weren't having trouble. We were just having to sort of take a look at it and not repeat something. And we really looked at the quality of light. And what I believe the title is Beyond the Surface, and all florals and very unlike any that I have probably ever seen before, when everything has been totally in focus and you knew exactly what the photographer was doing. With Carolina's work, there were more layers than just this is a flower. You would not even begin to think of it as being a catalog of naming photographs. There is a lot of emotion, I would call it, put into each one of the images in that series. What else did I want to say? The quality of light and the darkness in the images was a unifying factor. And Gail and I, with Carolina, would go from one, push them around on the internet and put them together and go, well, no, let's put them this order and this order. We had a good time doing that. And we had what I reflected on in the last couple of days is looking inside of a flower project and having other meaning and emotions. And you wouldn't use this set of images unless you really were very much into identifying flowers as, oh, this is a rose or this is a tulip. It is nothing like that. And it's one of the most reflective and interior expression from a photographer without being just trying to name all the ones that are out there. So we began with those images, and all three of us were moving them around and trying to see, how they would look best to the next one by color or by darkness. I noticed again in going through them this weekend, focus wasn't always the number one idea that she was trying to get across. Some of them are slightly out of focus. It gives you a completely different emotional feel. So after moving them around, and I think it was this way, you can correct me, Carolina, then she showed us some other images that she was just maybe started on, I'm going to guess maybe 6 months ago or something like that. And we decided to fit them into the whole set. And when I reviewed all of these images, suddenly what I'm calling the newer set of images has a connection to the flowers, which you might not think about until you see the expert printer that she is. And she captures the essence of an image, even when she's switched from such different content. So I find this one of the best sets of images that connect without you thinking they're going to connect, because it's actually Carolina, the artist, who pays the attention to the details, has something that she's trying to show you in every single image. That is a little bit long, maybe, for my discussion, but I just wanted to say that it is a delight. It was the best part of a long weekend that I enjoyed every one of them. So I will let you all take a look at them, and we will turn it over to Carolina.
Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you very much, Gail. And good evening, friends and colleagues, and thank you for being here. I hope that this talk sparks a conversation about the path of becoming an image maker, which is different for all of us. My journey into photography began in 2017. I had retired the year before, and like all good retirees, I decided to put my house in order and clean closets. And at that point, I stumbled upon an old point and shoot camera my husband and I had used for vacation photos. Rediscovering it sparked a curiosity that led me to dive into the art of photography. And here I am 7 years later. At the start, I knew little or nothing about digital cameras. I had no idea what they were or how they functioned. I knew nothing about photo editing, photo papers, and Lightroom was just a name that was not in my vocabulary. So it really was important that I focused on learning the fundamentals. I found the courses I needed at the suggestion of a friend. I found the courses I needed at PhotoWorks, where inspiring teachers provided just the right guidance for me at that point. Courses led by Joe Cameron, Karen, Gail, Alec Dan, Diane Charnoff, David Sherbel. They all helped me grow immensely.
Right now, I show 5 youth and 3 adults registered.
Joe's class, say
Five
what
youth, 3
you
adults, that'd be
mean.
correct.
Joe's class, say what you mean, marked my gradual shift towards fine art photography. And for their invaluable teaching and creative space they offered me, I am profoundly grateful. Their support helped me discover my voice, and I'm very proud to say that I am a PhotoWorks alumni. As I progressed, I came to understand that photography is a lifelong learning endeavor that demands patience in a deliberate approach to reveal its expressive language. My first subjects were botanicals. In their stillness, I explore the magic of light and color, aiming not to replicate what I saw exactly, but to evoke the subtle resonance within the image. And rather than creating striking or wow images, I sought to craft ones that hopefully lingered in the viewer's mind as they did on mine when I first encountered them. From 2018 to 2022, these were the pandemic years. I dedicated myself to botanical photography, often with intense focus and even a touch of obsessiveness. Some of the work is featured in the online exhibit. In recent years, however, as Karen has noted, my focus has shifted to capturing people and the spaces they inhabit. A few pieces from this new direction are also included in the online exhibit. This new phase brings its own and unique challenges, and as Arthur Meyerson, my mentor, explains, it involves perfecting the choreography of the where and the when. The where is positioning yourself relative to the moving subject, and the when is pressing the shutter at the perfect moment. And all of this action, keeping in mind that every element within that frame should have an intentional place. Color and light remain my guiding forces, shaping each image to hopefully create a lasting impact. I remain captivated by how these elements interact, each amplifying the other to bring an image to life. I always say that photography is often a solitary pursuit, and without sharing your work, it's easy to become lost in a maze of ideas. And I encourage photographers at various levels to seek communities of like-minded creatives and courses and mentorships and workshops that expand their skills and perspectives. Engaging in such environments can also inspire project ideas suited for portfolio reviews, for potential book projects, or even exhibits. And feedback and insights from others are essential for growth. And I think this is one of the qualities about PhotoWorks, that they have created a community of creatives where you actually can do that. And for that reason, I want to express my gratitude to PhotoWorks for this opportunity. Working with Karen and Gail through the exhibit review process has given me an invaluable insight into the role of the curator, especially the art of sequencing for form, for content, and for narrative. I thank them both for their patience and support. And I would like to open the field to look at the exhibit, but also to be able to hear questions. And also if you have experiences to share with us, they would be much appreciated. Thank you.
We were going to start with the botanicals, right? Yes.
Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, good.
yes, we can.
Sophie, is there a way to make it any bigger?
Let's see.
Ah,
That's better.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on a second. Okay, there we go. Is that even better?
Even better.
That's good, Sophie.
Okay, good.
Hey, Carolina, I don't know when you want to take questions or comments.
I'm open.
Okay. So, Sophie, can you go back to the previous one? Only because this is, as you know, my friend, completely dissimilar to what I do.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm struck by the light on the flower and petals and the nice glow and the level
Yeah.
of detail and texture, and then the softness of I guess their leaves in the background, but also there's still a textural element to it in terms of, like an overlay-ish kind of quality.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about when you see something like this, like
Yeah.
what do you see? Because there's two types of photographers. There's photographers that shoot what I call with intention, and you work the image, and then there's others that, hey, you take the shot, you hope for it, and then you go back and you play with it in Lightroom or Photoshop. And I'm just wondering, like, you saw something here, and
Yeah.
I know how you work, so maybe you could kind of talk us through how you see things like that.
What I'm interested in is this. I'm interested in dark and light. And I'm interested in what surrounds the subject, because I think sometimes what surrounds the subject, that darkness, those things that force the viewer to look into and see what is the context. What context is this flower floating in? I think that's one of the things that interests me most. And that's why in many of the photographs that you'll see a background that insinuates itself, as opposed to gives itself away completely. I want the viewer to actually take the time to look not just at the subject, at what shines, but also the context in which it shines. And so that's really one of the reasons why some of the photographs are very dark and the contrast is very marked, simply because I very much appreciate the dark colors, the dark context. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And I'm really intrigued by the fact that a lot of photographers would somehow try and have more focus or more prominence of the stamen, right? But it's there, but it's minimal, so it forces you into the flower and the petals. But you still maintain the whole quality of the textural element of the flower. It's really beautiful.
Exactly. It's an insinuation, really. That is really the thing about this flower. The flower itself is okay. It's not shabby, but it's the flower, the insinuation that that it's floating in some sort of a dark kind of
Yeah.
viscous thing
Yeah.
that really struck me about
Great.
this particular image.
Yeah, thank you.
Caroline, go ahead. I just want to say I also really like this flower, and as I recall, when you were talking about these your botanicals years ago, and I asked you how you shot in the dark like this, I think you said it actually wasn't dark
Yeah.
when you shoot it.
Mhm.
You do that in process, because I said I don't understand how you get that kind of light in the dark. Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I try to shoot with very, 200 ISO. And so it's dark to begin with, but I make a point of darkening the background. I just love dark backgrounds.
It's really beautiful. There's a glow to it, and there's several of your botanicals like this where light sort of infuses the leaves, and then you see the veins and stuff. It looks like it's a beating heart. It
Mhm.
sort of feels alive in an animalistic kind of way, not just alive in a plant kind of way.
Thank you.
It's really gorgeous.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it coming from you, Sandy.
Mhm.
Next.
Can you hi, Carolina?
Hi, Frank.
How are you? Hold that image right there. I remember I had the great pleasure, for those who don't know, to have Carolina in my Not Your Average Flower Picks class just a few months ago, as a matter of fact. And it was great fun. We had a really simpatico group, including a fellow who was a plant biologist who brought
That's
in.
right. That's right.
Yeah, he's the one that brought, yeah.
But I wanted to ask you particularly about this image here and about the spectacular portfolio that you had in lens work. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that really you're mostly a studio photographer, or for want of a better term, studio photographer with these plants and flowers, and that you are using mostly continuous light. I remember in our class, because I happen to love using different forms of flash, we were using a bunch of different things. But we use flashlights, we do everything. But I'm curious about this one here, which has to me just an absolute, almost medieval quality. It looks like a medieval tapestry. Whether you could talk a little bit about your process here, specifically in terms of going back to Sandy's point. I can understand her saying, "How did you get that shooting in the dark?" But in fact, it's something that you do and that I do, and that it does take some doing, but it's not alchemy. And so why don't you talk a little bit and kind of remove the veil on that? Let us know.
Actually, this one was not a studio. This one was out in Dumbarton Oaks. And so essentially, when you look at the actual photograph was shot when in a lot of light, natural light. Okay. And so some of the colors really, for example, this puff became very, very, very bright. So all of this process, it was post-editing. This was a little bit of sliders, a little bit of highlighting some of the colors. But so that's what it was in a very low, I always use a very low ISO, whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. But at the time, and this is an old one, this is dates back to 2020, early 2070. This was one of the first ones that was published, 2019 maybe. Yeah, because it was published. And I think I was fiddling with the sliders in Lightroom, but it was shot in natural light.
That's remarkable, but I can understand also finding, as I often tell people who are starting doing something like this and figure that they'll just go out into the garden and shoot at high noon, that usually, very often, the sun is your worst enemy.
It is.
And I admire the way you've done this. You get to, I guess, we get to different ways to achieve something like this. And with me, it would often be using a black backdrop with various flash heads uh,
Right.
doing things at certain times, but you can't
Right.
argue with the end result. So it's that's really wonderful. So I'm going
Yeah.
to relinquish the floor to other folks, but great to see you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Frank.
My pleasure.
I have a question. I'm not sure. Are we raising hands or how is that working?
Jump
Um,
in, Grace.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing these images. I'm interested in when you take the picture and then you decide in Lightroom how you're going to change it. Do you know that when you take the picture, or is it when you begin? I was thinking of the pink flower with the very dark background. When do you, how do you decide to um, to make those changes?
I decide when I take the photograph. It
So
just
you
something
have that in mind.
isolated. I completely isolated. And then I
Mhm.
began to sort of, the beauty of flowers is that they don't move. So you can just, you know, work the scene. All right.
Yeah.
So it is, for instance, that with the pink one, I mean, I must have about 15 or 20 or 25 shots for it.
Mhm.
And so it is really at that point where you actually are able to get the movement of the leaf, the sinuous of the leaf, because sometimes they cluster all around. And then
Right.
you're able to really do a better work post-editing. I mean, in post-production.
So, but then you said, okay, this is the one I work on.
That's
But
correct.
you knew you wanted to go dark
But I
with the
wanted to go
background.
dark. Yeah, this was a dark period. I've become a little bit lighter in my later years, but this
Well,
the early
it's not
one.
depressing dark. It's just dark.
Oh.
And you said you started with a point and shoot. Do you?
I did. I started with a point and shoot and auto, and then I took a course that Gail doesn't teach anymore. Is get out of auto work.
Right.
And today I shoot manual.
And what kind of camera do you
I
use?
have
One kind?
I have a Leica M11 and which are with a very simple menu. And then I have a Leica SL11 that also has a very simple menu. And you know, it's easy for me. I'm not a gear girl.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Grace.
Hey, Carolina, this is this one that you just this one was on gallery display in Vermont, was it not?
Yeah, this is not this is a layers.
Mhm.
This is an exercise. I took a course on layers and I worked with, this was my incursion in Photoshop, which I've since given up because it's too complicated for me. But this was sort of an exercise in trying to use layers to create graphic-like designs. So this is one of them, in which I use several layers of using flowers, giving them sort of a different context, one layer on top of each other.
Am I correct though in remembering that you actually had this one on gallery display in Vermont, if I remember correctly?
I
Or
have
one like it,
another one like this. I have
Yeah.
another one like this that was exhibited at the Photoplace Gallery
Yeah,
in
right.
Midford,
I
Vermont.
remember that. I remember that because we were going back and forth.
yeah.
I mean, this one has a very fabricy texture to it, and so I would encourage you to, maybe play with it and turn it into a tapestry or something, or sell it to somebody. It's quite striking.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Mhm.
And you know about those things, Joe. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Mm.
such drama in all of these.
Mhm.
You know?
Carolina, was this taken outside as well?
It was, and that's bright sunshine.
Mm.
The petals on that was just absolutely bright sunshine. But
Carolyn, can I
it
get you
was-
to go back to the one before this? Was this in the studio?
it was indoors. Yes,
Yeah.
this was indoors.
I think this is another one that's quite gorgeous. I mean, the lines, and it just kind of feels like it's uh falling, and it has so much emotion. I mean, it makes me kind of sad in a good way. But
This is absolutely beautiful, Carolina. It reminds me of a dancer's skirt, like draped, like she's laying across, getting ready to tie up her ballet slipper or something. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much, Donna Maria. Coming from somebody who knows about drapery, this is it's an honor. It's an honor.
It's beautiful.
Donna Maria, by the way, teaches a portraits course at PhotoWorks, and she does beautiful drapery in her portraits. Just gorgeous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carolina, I love seeing some of the hidden details that pop up after you look a bit longer, like seeing the traces of these little flowers.
Yeah,
Um,
they're the ones that are left behind in the flight.
mhm. Or almost
Right.
like a reflection
Yeah.
in a pond or something,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
and it creates a beautiful pattern as well. And so
Mm.
something, I don't know, it's an abstract image as well as something we
Yeah.
know.
Thank you, Sophie.
Mhm.
And I guess I just want to add, Carolina, I mean, the cumulative impact of the choreography as you scroll through these is just wonderful. It's, I mean, what you have unveiled, or they all seem like metaphors, and perhaps we're having our own personal reactions. What it means, is it, that one that Sandy pointed to me seemed like hovering between life and death, or like the Martha Graham skirt uh, cascading across the stage. But you are just a painter with light, and the philosophy that you share with us as you explained yourself and your origins totally comes through in your work of how deep it is. But on the other hand, one can just enjoy the pieces one by one as an image. So there are lots of layers here, and I thank you for walking us through these tonight. It's a wonderful evening.
Thank you, thank you, Diane. My teacher of writing.
Was it already raining? Or did you
Yeah.
add the water?
Add the water.
These really look like dancers.
Yeah.
This one's so beautiful, Carolina. I love this one. I don't know if you can hear me very well. I'm in the car.
Thank you. Thank you, Liana. Thank you.
It looks so magical the way it's lit. It's so beautiful. They look like fairies to me.
Oh, this is one of my favorites.
Yeah, this one was back in 2019. There's this magazine called Lens Work, and they asked for 6 photographs, seeing 6s. And Joe Cameron encouraged me to submit photographs. And I thought, not one in a million. 6? Where am I going to get 6? And I submitted this among others, the other 5, and by golly, that was the first time they published me. I was so stunned. I think I couldn't recover from that one for another year.
Carolina, can you tell us a little bit about how you achieved that highlight in the middle?
It's the sun.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sun in the middle reflecting again. This is a photograph taken outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the sun reflecting in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even remember how that was, but I darkened the environment completely. I isolated the contour of it. But that is a reflection of the sun. And it's really a lot of sliders on this one. It's not Photoshop because I don't know how to use Photoshop, but it's that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm not giving you any information.
No,
that's clear, but I can't even remember how this was done. If you asked me to do this one again, I probably would never be able to redo it.
In some ways, that's kind of half the fun, you know.
Yeah.
In the class,
Really?
we do all kinds of things, and I can't tell you how many times I've been doing this class for several years now, and magic happens, and then you say, "Well, geez, how did I do that? Let's try something else," and it doesn't work. But after a while, the more you do it, the more the magic happens, and that's
But this was outside light.
yeah.
Believe
No,
it or not.
that's remarkable. I would have assumed. I mean, if I were trying to do something like this, I might put a small flash head under the the flower and play with that. But it's funny. Just last night at PhotoWorks, I'm doing a course on photographing the face, and that's in some ways it's very similar to doing floral things because it's portraiture, so your subjects tend not to be moving. But we were doing all kinds of things with high intensity flashlights and reflective light, incidental light bouncing off, or is what my old teacher Neil Selkirk called coincidental light, which means that if there's any light on your subject, it's a coincidence. But it was this is really a wonderful example. This is one of my favorites. So anyway, thank you again.
Backlight, yeah. Next.
Carolina, what size do you usually produce these images as
What size?
Yeah.
This one was early one. This one was that I did for, remember, Eduardo Bazan's class back in, I think it was 2019 to 2021, maybe. And this one was, I think it was one with my Velux. I can't remember exactly what size, but it's probably, Leica has a format which is kind of interesting, and this one was a Velux, but I probably might have cropped it a little bit. So,
well, Karen, are you talking about how she presents the size of the prints?
Yeah, print size.
Oh, this is a small one. This probably is no more than a 8.5 by I have not printed them, but probably it's an 8.5 by 11. Does that something make sense?
Yeah, because they have such an intimacy about them that I was thinking about that aspect. And I thought, well, maybe she prints them really large, and they feel so intimate, they feel small to me, and I don't mean small as negative.
No. Yeah.
Now, given the format of this, I would agree, Caroline. This is probably 8.5 by 11 or 8 by 10, 11 by 14-ish.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Mhm.
Very abstracty.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
These are very early ones. This is one of the set that Lenswork published the first time around.
Mhm.
This is one
Leanna,
of,
this is the fairy you were talking about.
I did because it looks like a fairy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah.
But it's actually a flower. And this one again is from my class layers.
Mm.
Mhm.
It's actually a ginkgo
Oh.
ginkgo plant, a ginkgo leaf, which has been layered over each other and over each other.
Wow.
So
Oh yeah, I like this.
Wow.
and so we
Sunset.
this was dusk. Yeah, this was definitely dusk. The light helped me here a lot. And this is the new material I'm working on. I'm starting people and spaces. So this is really very early material. I'm starting to delve into this.
Mm.
And as early things go, not everything is, it's trial balloons. And again, in photography, in photographing people and the places they inhabit, it's really so much a matter of being in the right place at the right time and being blessed by goddess luck.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that luck should be a premise for one's career, but I think it's being in the right place at the right time and having the patience to wait for things to happen.
Well, I think another aspect of that is that, in effect, you make your own luck. And I'm talking about somebody like a writer like Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hours that requires to become an expert in something. But I remember that when I was studying under Jay Maisel at the main workshop, so this is decades ago, he said, if you want to be a photographer, you have to photograph every day. And I think there's absolute truth to that, because to use another example, I think of what Jay said compared with Derek Jeter as a shortstop for the New York Yankees, or anybody, Cal Ripken, whatever. You develop muscle memory, and muscle memory is muscle and eye memory in our case. The more you do it, the more you are I think are sensitive to things happening around you. And I think that really shows up the more you do it. You find that, back in the day when we were shooting film, you'd shoot 3 or 4 rolls of film, and back when you were starting out, maybe you got 3 or 4 keepers, fine. But by the do this for 10, 20 years, you're going to have 3 or 4 keepers per roll, if not more. So I think that the part of that is not necessarily luck, but it's the effort that you make to keep at this, keep doing it, and pursuing a particular project. In some sense, you pick things that really are that you love to do. The more, if you love it, you're going to do it more, and you're going to get better at it. It's as simple as that.
Oh, well, thank you for telling me that, because sometimes I lose faith in myself.
I'm sorry, sweetheart. You don't have to do that. I got plenty of faith in you for both of us. Oh, where's this?
This is in Puerto Natales. My husband and I were on our way to Antarctica. And so we stopped at this little town, this coastal town in Chile. And so this lady was there, and I loved her dress and the house.
I love the necklace.
So everything about her was just wonderful, and she was,
Carolina, I love the way her dress mimics the wall.
yeah,
The wave in the wall and the wave in the dress.
doesn't it? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
It just seems like they were both.
There's a lot of leading lines that lead you to her and various aspects of her that I think make this particularly nice. The other thing is, while there's a lot of color, okay, like if this were done, if this were in black and white, would have the same impression, and maybe the feeling about her may shift a little bit, you know? So that's a leading question, Carolina. There's a lot of stuff in here in color. I'm interested in hearing your point of view on black and white, because everything that I've seen, because it's very textural, could be in black and white, give you a different feeling, a different point of view. You're still playing with the same light. And in photography, unlike in watercolors and oil art and things like that, the only thing we can do is work with the light that we have, take away, which is basically what we're doing when working in Lightroom, or we're adding a little bit of extra exposure here and there, but we're playing around with light. So what's your feeling about, on your images, black and white?
Yeah, the new images, possibly that could be a possibility. I started doing black and white with the florals, and they didn't really work out for me. I had a monochrome camera, and this was during my botanical period, and that didn't quite work out for me. They came out a little bit too dark. And I don't mean in the sense of darkness. I mean, they came too sad. It wasn't just not right for me, or I wasn't handling the camera properly. But I think you've got a point that maybe in the street photography and on the portraits, I might start exploring black and white to see for results. But this
Carolina,
is
before you leave this photo, it also reminds me a little bit of your that pink flower, because this green, you know, you have all this sort of very neutral sort of colors, and then you have this a bit of a framing with the grid on the window and on the door, and then this green just kind of pops out there, and it sort of reminds me of
right.
a flower.
Right. And the green and the texture of the green. Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah,
Yes.
you're right. Yeah. And the senses, some people have told me that some of the techniques of the floral period are transferable to portraits. And I'm starting to find that out now as I move into this new phase.
In that vein,
Did this woman know that?
Oh, she did. She did. She was very kind. Yeah, and
Did you talk to her while you were taking?
Yeah, I did. And she told me her story. She told me about how she lived there, and her son would come every time from Santiago every month to visit her. This was a very, very tiny town in the Chilean fjords, very cold and at times, certain times of the year. And it was a very, very well guarded home, as you can tell from the door.
In the window.
when I look at this in that vein of it's almost a bilingual book, I'm pulling back in my mind images that may remind me of these people plus flowers. And there was one about 4 or 5 slides back, Patience, I think, which had a gentleman in the background out of focus and a yellow folded blanket in the front.
Oh, yes, right.
Highly textural, like the one I think Sandy pointed to,
Right.
with just the folding and unfolding.
Yeah.
And just to focus on it's almost an anti-luck narrative to really say that it seems that it's your patience and philosophy that allows you to click at the moment where the image speaks. And there's such this, I don't know, it's just a wonderful a silent beauty that you share with us. And the one question I have, and I'm not too much of a technical person, but we're looking on a computer screen. I'm curious about your paper choices, given that so much of your work has that textural element. Are there ranges of papers or favorites that you pair with images, or how do you think through the paper piece?
I think the ones that I have printed that have been most successful for me, for my taste, have been matte paper. Initially, when I first started with florals, I used to use glossy paper, but if I'm going to have something printed and I'm going to print it for myself, or I probably would have it done in matte paper.
Thank you.
And this is another one from another town further down the fjords.
I love the geometrics in that.
You created a depth on that left side.
Yeah.
Well,
And the fact that she's really kind of subtle. The light on her is so subtle, and you really can enjoy her, but also enjoy equally the background, which is, again, the palette is very delicate.
The light in that part of the world is lovely.
Is that right?
Yeah.
This next image, I think, has to be big, because I had just a great time trying to put together your florals and this, and I thought I'm just not going to be able to. And I know that everybody looking at it and I looking at it now, it's small and it doesn't, but honestly, with them being full screen on my computer, it was like these images, which we were worried about when we first put all the flowers up and where were we going to put these, they are remarkably seen that is the same photographer. I don't know exactly how to explain that, but all the time that I've been going through these and trying to think about them, it may look to everyone, oh, well, now she's doing street work, but there is something in them that they connect that I didn't realize until I got to see them.
Karen, that's a great point. And I have the luxury of knowing Carolina, and she's a friend of mine, and we talk photography a lot. But what I have noticed throughout this collection is that there is a striking similarity between the street work and the floral, what we'll call the floral work.
Right.
And I think what connects them, and Carolina, I don't know if you're aware of this, is the excellent use of negative space that gives you a chance to come in, focus on the subject, and you have a place for your eye to rest. And then in this particular scene, what you've got is you've got this awesome light playing. You've got columns providing framing. You've got the texture in her dress. You've got, the little girl there, and you've got all these lines, and you've got all this negative space there that kind of just adds to, I think, the dynamic quality of the image. And the street work, and it's the same in the street work, and it's the same in the floral work that you do.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you're finding that, because I'm trying to find a connector between the earlier part and this part. And that's really helpful.
I'm sorry.
Really, you see them big because they look like they belong together. Just amazing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Zoe.
I'm sorry. I have a question. I'm sorry, I didn't really get what's the connection between the florals and these travel images?
It's you speak what you think.
Well, I think one of the connections, what our colleagues are saying is that they are finding a connection here between those dark spaces.
Oh, okay, got
And
it.
the way they are framed, and the way the subject matter is framed, and
Oh,
the
okay.
way, the negative spaces. Is that right, Joe? Am I speaking?
Yes.
The negative
Yes.
spaces
Yeah.
versus the subject, how it's balanced. And then in the previous photograph, when there was a sort of a wave of a cover, there's some sort of curly cues and undulations
Right.
that can be found both in the flowers as well as on the street photography, sort of.
Well, I didn't have a chance to look at the florals if she showed them earlier. I'm sorry, I joined later. But is she using a negative dark space for the flowers to bring them to showcase them to?
Yeah,
Okay.
very much so.
I'm
This,
doing
if
that.
you,
Yeah.
if Zoe, if you didn't get a chance, if you came in late, this will be recorded, so you can actually hear
Oh,
it,
perfect. Thank
see
you.
it from
Thank
the
you.
beginning.
All
Okay.
right. Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe.
Yeah, this one's great too. And this, yeah. Mm. Yeah, it looks. This is great too.
That's it.
Yeah. That's gorgeous.
May I throw in my 2 cents?
Please, Jim, please.
The thing that strikes me is the gentleness or the subtle character of a color. There's full of color, but it's not harsh. It's not too loud. It just strikes me as just very easy in the floral as well as the rest of the people and places pictures. I think the color is beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It's Jim, it's not easy. One of the things that as you all know is that to produce a show like this, it seems like all of them were easy to make, but as in my progress, as you know, one of these shots could take several times going to the same place at different times of the day, or in the same day shooting this or photographing this, 6 or 7 times or more. So it's a lot of work involved. It seems simple, but not quite too, especially for the ones that are, I'm just starting on this, and it's you have moving. My subjects are no longer quiet and still. They keep moving.
Carolina, before we end, can we just go through all of them without any comments and let people get
Absolutely.
just
Absolutely.
a quiet look at them?
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Well,
Sure.
Carolina, I would say that even in your subjects that are people,
Mhm.
there is a certain quietness and stillness about them.
Hmm.
Um, and I also feel like there's a very common unifying theme across the botanicals and the people in that your use of a particular color palette and I don't want to say it's muted, but it's a subtle color palette. It's not intense, eye-popping Fuji Velveeta color palette.
Yeah.
So I think there is a. I mean, I can tell looking at the botanicals and the people pictures, it's by the same photographer.
Yes,
Oh, good.
I agree.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah.
That I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. Yeah. Yeah. It's the same palette. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Okay. Thank you. That was wonderful, Carolina. Wait, Carolina, you're muted.
She's not hearing us.
Thank you so much for being here tonight, and thanks for your comments, your suggestions. Thank you for just being here and for being colleagues and friends and supporters. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much. In times like this, it's very, very, very uplifting. Thank you.
And thank you all for coming.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Well done, Carolina. Very well done.
Thank you
I'm so proud
much.
of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Music to my ears. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, bravo, bravo.
Ah, gracias. Gracias.
Prego, prego.
Your work is really beautiful, and I'm so glad I got to see it. But I particularly am paying attention to what you said just a minute ago, which in times like these, this was a very good thing to be doing, to look at this and be thinking about this. And so thank you for sharing your work.
Thanks so
It's
much.
absolutely lovely.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. Love them. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, Sophie.
Thank you, Sophie, for putting us together.
Of course. I'm so glad that we could do this, Carolina.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
I feel so inspired.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to look at flowers differently forever.
Thank you.